Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 497. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Mark Augustiniak.
Hey.
Matt Selner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week, we are covering the Game Boy Color classic, Resident Evil Gaiden. As Season 11 continues, we'll discuss, rate, rank, review, talk, pick apart, pull apart, and fall in love with this Capcom published, not developed, Resident Evil Gaiden. But more on that later. I'd like to know first, Mark, what location would be less desirable to be isolated with the undead than a cruise ship?
And a cruise ship. That's a... Wow. That's actually a good question. Gonna have to say... one of those, like, middle of nowhere fast food places, but it's one that you hate. So, like,
Wendy's.
being trapped in, like, a Arby's or something.
Yeah. I would object. That's...
Like, I think I would rather be bitten by a zombie than eat Arby's at that point.
That's a back of the box quote if I've ever heard one. Matt, where would you least like to be trapped with the roaming Risen?
I was thinking somewhere nice and cold. Antarctica's a bit extreme, but, you know...
That would work to your advantage.
What's the extreme? The Siberia. I'm sure there's some kind of populated area somewhere in Siberia, right? That would have
I was
enough
gonna
people
do
for an
a
undead
cool,
outbreak.
old man joke and give you the Maryland in the middle of March. And by I was gonna, I mean I did, and there it is. So there's your Arctic tundra. I think for different reasons, but I wouldn't want to be in an amusement park, mostly because, like, you're in a place that should be fun, but you can't do any of the fun stuff. You just need to fight and survive. It wouldn't be a good time. And now I ask you, have there ever been Resident Evil games what took place in those three places? Have we seen a Resident Evil game, spin-off or not, that took place in a fast food restaurant, the Arctic, or an amusement park?
I'm gonna safely say no.
I don't know, man.
I'm shocked about the amusement park. Didn't Silent Hill have a section in
Yes.
an amusement park? Yeah.
Did Dead Rising do one? No, Dead
Was it
Rising's
3?
not necessarily.
Um.
Or am I just thinking of malls?
Yeah, like I've only played 1 and 2, so I can't speak for the other ones.
The one on Xbox One, was that the one that had some theme park things?
It might have. Could have. The Arctic, though, I feel like there's definitely been a...
Revelations. One of them's in a very cold spot. I think the second one, or one of the episodes in the first one. Somewhere
that
it
sounds
goes
right.
somewhere cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember because you're mostly on that. You're on a cruise ship.
Oh, 6 has a spot with Wesker's son.
Oh, you're right.
The section's not a whole game. It's
Yeah, like
probably a chapter or two, but
Yeah, I've completely forgot about that. And that's like
yeah, as most people should.
Did you see they updated that one recently, by the way? They patched 6 on PC to...
I saw 5 was patched.
5, that's what it is. I'm sorry. 5 was
But
patched.
I think it's I thought it was just it could be just all games across the board that have games for Windows Live finally got removed.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But yeah, it makes sense for 5 to finally get that. Now it's easier for people to play that game.
I think that's right. However, we're not here to talk about 5 or 6 or 4 or 7 or 8 or 1 or 2 or 3.
I'm kind of 2.
Well,
Then kind of 1.
we're here to talk about Resident Evil Gaiden, developed by M4 Limited with Capcom, published by Capcom, released on the Game Boy Color. First released in Europe. The PAL region got it on December 14th, 2001, with a North American release 6 months later on June 3rd, 2002. Your back of the box reads as follows. Survival horror for your handheld. Experience a brand new chapter in Capcom's classic horror survival series, Resident Evil. Now, a desperate fight for survival takes place aboard a luxury cruise liner overflowing with a host of deadly zombies. There is no escape. As STARS operative Barry Burton, it's up to you to save Leon Kennedy, rescue a young survivor named Lucia, and disable a deadly bioorganic weapon. With countless traps to avoid, rooms to explore, puzzles to solve, and mysteries to uncover. Each lurking horror survived will take you closer to the source of the Resident Evil. Survival is your only option. Has it always been, was there ever one of those moments in any of the games where they told you you are in search of the Resident Evil? Is that a thing that's been...
I don't think so.
The way that it's pronounced here, take you closer to the source of the Resident Evil. It makes it, like I get it, but I'd never gotten it before. You know what I mean?
It explains a lot. It definitely gives some context to this whole thing. Not in a good way.
Oh. Well, the game was, just to give a little bit more background before we jump in, game was developed by British developer M4 with Shinji Mikami working as an advisor and the director of Resident Evil Code Veronica, Hiroki Kato, writing the story. I also, coincidentally, because I'm, there now as that kind of whatever you want to call me, but, I like to read magazines from time to time. This here, I was on a GameCube kick about a month and a half ago, and I was like, I got some Nintendo powers from like the launch of the GameCube. Let me look through those for dumb things. And I found this is the January 2002 issue of Nintendo Power. There's a 2002 preview for Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. And on the last page of it, got a little sneak peek at Resident Evil Gaiden. Shows 2 screenshots, one of the kind of running around the ship and the other of the actual first-person combat mode, with the description, Capcom's horror action series gets a new look and feel for GBC. It's less gory and easier to control.
All right.
Matt's
They're not wrong.
tentatively agreeing.
I mean, easier to control. This
Fair.
is this isn't even before a remake, so yeah.
I do think
The original release, I think, is before a remake. The 2001.
It might be like
I think the same issue has a preview for the GameCube remake hitting. Later in 2002. But I can't. Maybe not.
Oh yeah, because we don't get it to the summer. You just said that, but in one year at the other. Yeah. This comes out 2001. Remakes 2002, from what I'm looking at right here.
Well,
I mean, we were definitely in a Resident Evil world. The movie was coming out. When was the first movie? I feel like
That'll probably be
it feels like a. When?
It's after 4, because there's that. No, sorry. It's before 4, because 4 has that scene, or that small
I
feel
section. Like 2003 is the first movie.
That would
Either
check
way.
out.
I would say that right now, when Gaiden comes out, that is peak. it's as peak Resident Evil as you're going to get until, I would say, like right now, because I feel like we're in a pretty good Resident Evil essence.
2002.
4, I think. I think 4 brought it back because everyone was so hyped for 5.
Yeah,
True.
The movie was 2002.
2, okay. Yeah, split the difference there.
Damn, what a year.
Yeah.
Remake, 0, movie.
No.
So yeah, it really was the year of yeah, I've got a lot of notes I jotted down whilst playing. For listeners who kind of jumped into this to listening to this after looking at our scores and looking at where we ranked it, you might find that my scores are a little bit lower than my enthusiasm surrounding the game. But that's just me using the full width of our rating scale. I'm kind of middle of the road numbers wise, but I do generally walk away from this game impressed by it. I think I like what was attempted here. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but I liked it overall. What did you guys think of this? Mark, I'm going to start with you just because, Matt, this was your addition to the list and you've got a history with it I want to dive into. But Mark, what's your overall did you like the game?
I did not add this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
I know Matt did. I want to save Matt. That's why I wanted to start with
Gotcha.
you.
It sounded like you said Mark. I don't know if you cut out at the wrong time or not.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe yeah. That might have been interruptive. No, yeah. Matt, I know added this, and I know you've got a history with it.
Okay.
But yeah,
I sure do. It's there's a lot going against it, for sure. There is stuff to like, despite that. Not a lot. Maybe like 2 things. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't play it again.
it's like that.
Yeah, it's not, okay, so we're now in a post. We've all played Metal Gear Solid on Game Boy Color.
Mm-hmm.
And see what could be, and then you go to play this, and it's not fair to Resident Evil in that regard. But a bar is kind of set, but there's also things to expect because it's a Game Boy Color game. There are limitations you got to deal with, but this felt like nothing was on the same page. Like the art style it felt like 5 different art styles were mashed in together at once, and whoever that 2 parts stick out to me. As like a part at the end stood out to me, and the person that talks to you through the headset, I don't know where the hell he came from, but that art style does not fit with the rest of the faces in the game. He looks like he came from like Metal Slug or some shit with that shading, and everyone else is just like MS Paint looking flat colors.
Oh, Leon! I think Leon looks the worst in this game.
Leon looks like a gross old man with a wig. but the maps, like the backgrounds, the actual shooting portion, and those zombies look amazing. Like I actually enjoy that part. Like that's the combat. I think is my favorite part.
Yeah.
And like just like exploring the ship was fine. Like the details seemed fine to me. Like I think it was pretty okay for what it was. They try to do stuff with shading where like you're running through light and dark, and that affects your character sprite. Character sprite is bad. Leon and Barry, the only difference is that Barry has like a little black pixel for a beard. Other than that, you're the same character in a gray suit and black hair. Like it doesn't change. But I get there's like sprite limitations or something. I'm sure it's all spent on the zombies. Yeah, I don't know. Just it felt like a lot of it was just like lost in translation, or there wasn't communication between everyone working on it. Or I'm also curious, like how much time were they allowed to work on this? Because I'm sure that played a big part as well. But yeah, I don't know. It just nothing felt thematic as far as presentation goes. But I do like how unique the gameplay is.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first person action sequences especially are cool, and they evoke there's a lot of like new projects that are happening, not just because of Game Boy Studio, but I think Game Boy Studio is helping certainly with a lot of those. But you're seeing more kind of like homebrew and things like that happening, that do similar sort of first-person combat, because it's very easy to kind of get that up and running in something like Game Boy Studio. I'm gonna kind of plug here for a second now that we're talking about it, but if you check out, there's a bunch of games on itch, but I'm gonna specifically call out one because he's a friend and I thought his games were good. Neighbor is one on itch. That one I think is maybe, I think Neighbor and Traumatarium. So they're both made, you can play them in the browser, you can download the pocket files and play them on an analog pocket, or you can get, if you have an EverDrive or something, you can play it via that on real hardware. But that has a lot of that first-person combat stuff. But yeah, if you check out Elagos Games or Horatio.nyc on itch, this reminded me of playing those games, which I know these were obviously made much later than the Resident Evil game. But yeah, I liked the combat a lot. Exploration a little. We can come back to that. Yeah, Matt, you added this game to the list. This was one you played a long ago, and also your our journey through Matt's Game Boy history continues.
Yeah, it's like I kind of spent last year going through games that I played, and I guess maybe me or whatever, and I guess I just missed the whole console. I was like, oh, I'll backfill this year. That's kind of where we're at. No, but I remember this game fondly. I own this as well as Metal Gear Solid, which makes, I guess, 2 rare Game Boy games that I stumbled upon in my lifetime. Don't know how the hell I did that, but yeah. So no, but I remember playing this game. This is from me before revisiting, but like I remember like going through. I remember mostly enjoying it, and I just remember it being hard at the end. I never beat the game. I will say I still haven't beat the game. I had to put it down this time. But yeah, I remember pretty much being on the final boss, and what turns out to be the final boss upon research for today. But yeah, I just ran out of ammo. I remember ammo always being an issue with this game. And upon replaying it, I found out why. But I think this is a clever take on the franchise for the platform it's on and the limitations it has. Is it the best Resident Evil game? No, but is it better than a lot of the other spin-offs of the Resident Evil franchise? I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I always considered it just a clever take, because we haven't seen anything like this from the franchise. There was never a sequel to this, and then I think on Advance, don't they do something proper like Resident Evil 1 on Advance?
Game Boy Advance? I don't think there is a Resident Evil game.
Oh, all right. Well, then I guess they don't do anything handheld then.
There's Resident Evil DS. But that's
what I'm thinking of.
But
maybe not Advanced. Maybe I'm thinking DS. Sorry.
But that's just a port of the first game, basically. But it has
that's what I'm thinking of, like a port, a proper port. Now I'm thinking of DS then.
Yeah, it was Resident Evil Deadly Silence because everything on DS needed to have a subtitle,
Right.
what had DS as the...
That had if you're going down like a hallway, it would have like first person sections where you could only use your knife, I believe.
That... And did you have to draw to do that?
No, it was kind of on rails. You were just like going down, and you just had to just slash at things as you're going down.
See. Yeah,
If I'm remembering correctly.
I've not played that one. I'm slowly... I think at this point, I might be caught up on being even with the number of numbered games I've played versus spin-offs, because until we played 2 for Game of the Year back in, 2019, I'd only played 4 and some of 1 remake. Now I think at this point I've played everything but 5 and 6 from the main line.
I haven't played OG3.
Okay, I've not gone back to the
Code Veronica. I haven't played.
Yeah,
That might be it.
but knowing, I guess my other spin-off games were always sort of like the on-rail shooters, a lot of those types of things. Not necessarily this one. This one, so just kind of running down, I ended up, incidentally, like the notes I was taking kind of, I think, align with different elements of this game that we can talk about. So let's start with what I took as a positive. Maybe I'm the only one, but I liked the character portraits. I liked the vignettes that we got to see while Barry pontificated about his discoveries. Mark's
I didn't
long
mind the rest of the
rinse.
characters. I didn't mind the rest of Leon looks like dog shit.
So separate from the portraits, though, what I really stood out to me were like the cutscenes, if you will. They weren't like full cutscenes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I thought they were neat, like thinking about Game Boy Color and thinking about being in like I know at this point we are in the release of the Game Boy Advance, so there's definitely things that are coming out that are a bit more technically impressive. I don't know. I just like the way they looked, and it started making me think of. I wish more Game Boy and Game Boy Color games had done things like that. And I started to think about, like, one, I can't think of games that did, but two, like, imagine if Pokemon Gold and Silver had those types of cutscenes just kind of throughout the story beats, rather than just like the top-down view, text scrolls at the bottom. But like, what if you actually got like a cool vignette of, I can't remember any of the plot from Gold and Silver, but
I think I can't remember if they started to do that, like with Crystal.
it could
Or
have.
it could be post Crystal. It didn't happen much at all. Not like this. I think it was only when like legendaries were like revealing themselves. It was like a little moment. Or whatever.
Yeah, but like those things like just felt big and like in a game where I feel like a lot of what you're doing throughout the game here is forgettable. Like a lot of the running around the boat, searching rooms, searching for keys, unlocking doors, the exploration side of this I thought was kind of mostly boring. I thought that those moments stood out, even when those moments themselves were kind of boring, where it was just like Barry reacting to something or Barry discovering something, whatever. I thought those kind of worked well. I also thought, so battle, I think, is half of the conversation here, or at least it's the majority of what you do in the game that is actually fun to do, I would say. Please feel free to disagree, but I thought that the battle sequence was really well thought and well implemented. I liked that it kind of is a rhythm game when you are, you know what I mean? Like the way that, especially if you have multiple enemies on screen, on left and right of the screen, when you've got to time up your button input. So for listeners who've not played the game or seen footage of the game, when you encounter a zombie in the overworld, you cut to a battle sequence that is from a first-person view. Zombies are walking towards you, and there's a bar in the center of the screen that has a I don't know, a ticker. What would you call that? A little like node bouncing from left to right, and you need to press a button as the meter or as the bar passes over like a hit bar or a health bar for the enemy. And when you time those presses correctly, that's when you do successful hits against the enemy. There's a visual input that you can just look at and see, but it also usually lined up with one of the layers of the instrumentation in the Game Boy, which I ended up kind of doing it to the rhythm of a beat. Did you guys find yourself doing that at all, or was I?
I didn't even focus on that. I would just try to move my main target to the edge of the left or right of the screen. That way I didn't have to be as precise with my timing. It's like, all right, I just wait till it hits the edge of the screen, and I'll just...
Oh, that's clever. Yeah, yeah.
No, I didn't really do that. No, I'm actually trying to think, but no.
It was just like one of the like. There's like a couple layers to this to the music that plays, and like one of them almost whenever you have like multiple enemies on the screen, even a single enemy, like there is a point in the beat where you can feel you should be pressing. So I thought that was, I don't know if that was intentional or incidental, but I liked it. My other note about the battle sequence is that it sucks not having bullets, because that is most of my experience with the game.
Knife fight.
Yeah, a lot of knife fights. But that, I guess, in turn, like you do really have to explore the ship and check every corner, every room, everything you can, and you have to do battle because there's items that fall from enemies. So like, there's that aspect of it as well.
That's my biggest critique about this game, in terms of like survival horror. I get it, lack of ammo. OG Resident Evil games do this pretty much up until like 4. These games are known for you not having ammo, you trying to stay away from as many fights as possible, finding key items, backtracking. Like this game has a lot of that, right? But this game does differently is it hides key items on zombies, not just like boss zombies that you get, you go into the room and you face a boss and then they drop the key item that gets unlocked like the next part of the game or whatever. It's like regular like overworld zombies, and you can eliminate some of them because you'll get this little exclamation point that pops up in red saying that an enemy on the screen currently has an item. It doesn't necessarily mean a key item. So you're almost forced to engage in fights and use precious ammo, and you don't know for sure this is the zombie or not. And I think that's the part, it's like counterintuitive. Like it wants you to fight, but you don't have the items to fight. And then like you said, yeah, it makes you search every nook and cranny, but that's boring. I just want to keep going. That's the part that gets me. It's the not having ammo and the game encouraging you to fight when any other Resident Evil game, you're kind of fleeing or trying not to engage almost.
Yeah, because that's the one, like, you can run by zombies, you can avoid them, and it's just as effective here as it is in other games, except for that one key part. You're kind of forced to engage. Speaking of enemies, there's the one enemy in the blue dress. Did either of you get a Jill vibe from that enemy? It looks like Jill with longer hair, but not really. I just feel like that dress was very... They end up recycling it. It's like the same woman in a red dress, but like the blue one specifically, I thought of Jill. Probably.
No, I try to always avoid that one the most.
Yeah.
I see what you're... I didn't really get it, but I was trying to avoid that one the most because that was the one that poisoned you.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't want to deal with that.
No. I will use that as a reminder for everyone listening. You've got like a week to buy 3DS games on the eShop, and Revelations is maybe still currently on sale for $3. So is Mercenaries 3D if that's your bag. But go check out those things before you can't. But yeah, running through the world, I did love. So I guess like one of my big complaints with going through I tried to. There's so many ways you can play this game today, right? Like we've got different ways to emulate this. You can play it on original hardware. You know, you can play it on a handheld. You can play it on a whatever. Like I could play this through the Mister on the TV if I wanted to, but I tried to really maintain the Game Boy experience as much as I can. So not even just playing it on. I mean, I played it on the Pocket, but like not even just that, but also like. Just, I tried to play it like laying on the couch, doing nothing. You know what I mean? Like how I would have played a Game Boy game back in 2000, whatever, or in the 90s too. But it was tough to do because one, the save system was, you know, the traditional Resident Evil style save system where there's very few of them dispersed throughout the whatever. And like you have to get to them to save. You couldn't just, well, I'm gonna stop now. I know save states. I know, but like trying to. I know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, that stinks. But the bigger thing for me, even separate from save states, is because let's say you do that, whatever. But like leaving the game. Getting away from it, a couple days pass by, and then you're like, oh yeah, let me jump back into that. The way that I would do with a traditional handheld game, I forget where I was. I'm like, it would take me a minute to get my bearings because the areas are so samey and so, I don't know. It's like, wait, which floor am I on? Where am I? What am I doing? Oh, okay. You have to run around a bit, probably waste some ammo. There were definitely some times where like, I would go in and just know that after 30, 40 seconds of running around, maybe even longer, 3-4 minutes, whatever, that I was just going to reload the save. But it was enough for me to figure out, like, where's my line? Okay, I got it. I'm going to restart now from where I left off and then get going. So that was tough to do. But I do think that, like, as you explore the world and as you find things, like, there's these little tiny moments drawn in the world where like remembering that this is a Game Boy game and then it is smaller, there's still stuff like the animated flames in the kitchen area, like coming out of it's like an unattended kitchen because the chef is dead, so now there's flames coming from the stoves. The bathrooms, when you go through those, the sinks are running and overflowing. Like those little things like were nice little touches to build the world out, I thought. Again, ultimately a lot of the areas just end up feeling similar, but those things I thought were nice little details. Being kind where I can, right?
I liked how they usually made like bigger rooms or the hallways, like they gave it that skinny tight vibe to it, which you would normally get in a Resident Evil game where it's like, I think I can squeeze by this zombie before they grab me, and you had a lot of that in this, especially at first, like once you open the door and you get that first cutscene of all the zombies, but in actuality it's just like fucking 2 right in front of you.
Yeah.
But even that area, like you can't really avoid that fight unless you go left, but that left is like skinny. And then you kind of realize like the rest of it's kind of laid out like that. There's not many rooms that are nice and wide open for you to easily like run around. There's usually some kind of chair or something in the way. Even like in the little like hotel room little areas that you can use like small keys to unlock. It's usually something to make it feel smaller than what it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah, which that gives you that added sense of kind of dread and terror. I am curious how this would have played on like original no backlight. Like this is a dark game. Like the color palette's pretty dark. I guess you could have probably definitely played this on a Game Boy Advance back. Well, no, because even the Advance, the first one didn't have.
Gotta have that worm light, man.
Yeah, it would have been worm light, which, yeah, everything.
Or like that magnifying glass.
Yes, I want to see one of those again. Like I've seen them, but it's. You know.
I mean, I remember playing it, but I think it's like I don't think it's any different than all the other shit you play that you're like, I don't know how I would have done it back in the day.
It's just a dark game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I promise you, I got the final boss. So I did
No,
something, right?
we all did it. Like I remember being in a car with a Game Boy, like in the window a certain way so that the sunlight's hitting. You know, like we did it, but like, things do get interesting when you start to add more than one playable character, because a little bit, right? Like your approach to combat kind of changes. It becomes a little bit more about resource management, right? Like who's getting what, who's shooting when. You kind of don't always need to worry about that, and it's not like the entire game that you have multiple people in your party, so to speak. But you know, the balance between like, does that one get the shotgun because the shotgun has 20 shots left and the handgun has 3, like, oh, but that guy has less health, or you know what I mean? Like you're kind of balancing resources in that way. And I do wish that we got a bit more of that, because the game's relatively short, right? Like if you know what you're doing, you can beat it in just a few hours. But and to that I mean, like the actual, like, this game isn't split into like chapters, but you know, if you look at it in that sense, like it's not many chapters to go through. I feel like it could have been neater, like from the start when you first start playing, like you have 3 character slots where it implies like you're going to build a party and you're going to, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like an RPG, but it feels like it could have gone that way. And I feel like I would have liked it more to have explored those options. Like if this had received a sequel, it might have been a neat thing to like swap people in and out, play with their strengths and weaknesses, and then again, you'd have to have different things to fight, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that was the majority of like my notes on it. The thing for me was really that last bit of trying to play it as a Game Boy Color game and sticking with that, but like the game just did not. I don't know if the game was too ambitious for what it was, or
I feel at this point in time with the franchise, like they don't know. They probably, at least M4 or whatever, they probably didn't know what they could and couldn't do. I'm not sure if they had much direction. I'm not sure if Capcom knew what they were doing with half their characters. I think Leon was only slapped in there just because that was the most recent game. Even though you're playing as Barry, Leon's on the front of the box.
He's up, right, exactly.
And it's like you don't even meet with him until you're a little into the game. And then, so I wonder if Leon was even meant to be there. I wonder if it was like supposed to be somebody else before that, and then they just threw in that just for recognition purposes.
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of did that even more recently. There's that CG movie coming out or whatever, Death Island or whatever it is. And for people that don't know, the Resident Evil CG movies are canon.
I didn't realize
and
that.
they just threw in Jill last second into those trailers and into that movie, and it's like the same exact model from Remake 3. And you're trying to be like, how does this Jill exist with old Chris and Leon? And it's apparently when she had the cells in her from 5.
Yeah.
Those T cells or whatever or something like that. Apparently that stopped her from aging. And it's like, no,
okay,
perfect. You didn't even change her clothes. Like she still has the same outfit from 3. I think you just want to pop in a model, not want to update this to make her look older or change anything. You just copy pasted, and it's just like
to go
that's
the other
the only
way
Jill
with that.
Yeah, it's weird, but I get that feeling from Leon in this a little bit, and it's just like
I
at this point in time, they don't know. I just honestly, I don't think they knew what direction to take.
It's also weird that Leon's on the cover. I feel like he's barely in the game.
Yeah, he shouldn't.
Exactly, like that. That's my point, and I think that art might be. I'm not even sure how. I know it's official art, but I feel like that's a prototype concept art of Leon.
Because it's not very. I mean, it's just.
It's like a big ass vest that's like held together with duct tape or something.
Yeah,
it
with a
awesome.
red radiant and then the raccoon police.
Yeah, why is he still the raccoon? It's not a city. It's been nuked at this point.
Right. Yeah, so like I don't know, like, and then you have that movie that came out, the live action movie, and like that is a completely different direction as well. I don't think Capcom had a tight leash on this at this time.
I can see that. I do have a list of games that M4 had created in its short time as a developer. There were 6 games developed by M4. The first was a Game Boy Color game as well, Tasmanian Devil, Munching Madness. The second was Game Boy Color game that I think I have, Jeremy McGrath Supercross 2000.
Sick.
The third, now this one kind of makes sense for why they probably landed on, or why Capcom picked them for Resident Evil Gaiden. They made Mary-Kate and Ashley Winner's Circle. Have either of you played Mary-Kate and Ashley Winner's Circle?
No, why would I?
Because you bought a Mister and you're scrolling through and you're like, wait, what? Let me click on this and see what this is. That is if you thought the adaptation of Resident Evil into a Game Boy Color game was blasphemous, go check out this horse racing game where you, on the Game Boy Color. Anyway, they made Resident Evil Gaiden, then they did Ants. You know, like the
movie?
My phone's, you know the one, the DreamWorks.
Or ANTZ, yeah.
Yeah. Ants. And then it's just World Sports. So I think it's like an Olympics tie-in where you play as characters from Ants. And then their one Game Boy Advance title was Mission Impossible Operation Surma.
I remember that. I never played it, but I remember hearing and seeing that one. That one looked okay.
It looks like Metal Gear Solid that we just played last month.
Was Mission Impossible a launch title for Game Boy Advance?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like it would have been.
This one that they developed was released December 2003, so it would have been a couple years after the launch, but there may have been one at the launch of GBA. I don't know.
When did GBA launch?
2001.
Did it really?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I didn't pick it up till 2002. No. I know I didn't get it day one, but I think I got it like month 1. Something like that.
It was March 2001 in Japan. We got it June 11th, 2001. Debuted at $99.99, which of course, children, is the real tragedy of us losing dedicated handheld consoles. That we could pick up a console for $100. Can you imagine?
Yeah, my the first game I got with it was Mega Man Battle Network.
Yeah. I do not see a Mission Impossible game listed under the launch titles for the GBA, but
I do remember seeing a lot about that in Nintendo Power. They were very adamant.
Man, Operation Surma looks a lot like a Siphon Filter box art. Just gonna throw that out there.
It feels like that, and then the gameplay looks a little bit like that. Metal Gear Solid, but
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another gripe about this game? Especially
yeah,
for
please
playing
hit
it
us
a long
with the
time. Especially playing it for a long time, which to what you alluded, it's kind of tough with the save points being what they are. Do any of your ears bleed at any point hearing the same thing over and over as you're exploring, looking for ammo?
Yeah, the music got old pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And there's some songs when you're playing an old game like that come back around where you're like, you get tired of it, and then you're like, wait, no, this is I love it, and it's been like the same 3 loops, but like eventually This one did not do that, and that's what led to the frequent departures from playing, like where I did want to make it a Game Boy experience because I just couldn't do the music over and over again.
You know what music does that? It just came back in my life recently. Damn Blitzball music for Final Fantasy X. Man, when you play Blitzball 10 straight games in a row, that, but it comes around every time. Every time.
Yeah, they didn't get the memo at M4, it turns out.
No.
It is on its own. If you just heard those songs one time and not looping indefinitely,
it's not bad. It's not bad.
But yeah.
Yeah, like when the cutscene, because the cutscenes have like that different music.
Yeah.
And the battle even has that different music. The battle music is pretty good. The cutscene music's not bad. And then you go back to that music. And I think what makes it worse is not just because you hear it all the time, but I think of like the handful of tracks you get to hear, I think that one is the worst one.
It is. And
it's because of like how like high pitch it is, and then like for a second it's layered. Like it feels like it's building up, and the more instruments are being added, and then it just goes away.
Yep, it just starts back over again.
Where was it going?
Yeah. I almost feel like if they'd done silence in the overworld, that would have been better.
Maybe. Can we spoil this game?
I think so. We'll just
not canon.
Yeah, like can we talk about this ending first?
Yeah, if you're someone out there, you might want to skip ahead like 2 or 3 minutes, but yeah, go ahead.
So we learned that the BOWs are shapeshifters.
Yes.
And they try to trick you in thinking that Barry was bad, but he's not bad. He was playing both sides, but he was ultimately good. But then during all that, Leon's dealing with his shit, fighting a BOW, and then it cuts away after that or something. Like you switch back to Barry, and then you go to find Leon after, quote, betraying him. But then it turns out he's a BOW, and you fight that, and then you find Leon again. You're like, oh, hey, let's get out of here. and then it zooms in on his gross-ass chapped lips. His, like, old-ass geriatric fucking waxy lips, and then a little bit of green blood on his neck. And he smirks. And then it's credits. And it's like, oh, he's a BOW, but you don't know for how long. You don't know what happened to Leon if you were...
Yeah, where's the real Leon?
Nothing... You will never find out. And that felt like an afterthought. Or not thought enough. I don't know what to call it. But
well, speaking of afterthoughts, I feel like I should have tried to chase down interviews with Hiroki Kato to see if there had been anything about him talking about the story or that ending through the years. That would have been... I'm intrigued.
That's why it also... Yeah, like that's why it made me think that it wasn't meant to be Leon. Like, I think it was just supposed to be somebody else that you just didn't know. And that probably would have made it a little more interesting. Like, oh... then, this probably can make a little more sense, but...
Well,
yeah, it's...
Good thing he figures out the antidote to Las Plagas, right? I guess that cured everything.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All done, wrapped it up.
If it was any other game, I feel like I would be a little more appreciative of the various art styles in this. I don't know why. Just like that guy, the PDA, the guy with the headset with the weird and intense shading that no one else has, and then Leon's gross ass lips up close are very like John K. like Ren and Stimpy zoom in.
I do not mean any offense to the franchise I'm about to name here.
Okay.
I don't nothing. But that operator did slightly remind me of like a caricature that you would be talking to in Hotline Miami. Just the way the shading was.
I was getting those vibes from Barry's face, just because how flat that one was. But because of the shading, it reminded me of the character select screen in like the first Metal Slug game.
But the music they would play during like I'm just gonna call them codec sequences. quickly reminded me I'm not playing Hotline Miami.
And you know what's funny? To go even further, whenever I look at Hotline Miami art, like when I was first, like my first playthroughs of it, and just getting used to that art style, I kept thinking of As Told by Ginger. Because like the lip placement was kind of low in a lot of a lot of the characters, and just the way the hair was kind of like spaghetti looking. It just always reminded me of that, which is it's not a bad thing. I like As Told by Ginger, but it just reminded me.
I was trying to find something about that Kato. Maybe seeing if there. I couldn't find anything, but I did find the picture of Jill that you were talking about, where she's still 20 years old. 25 years later. World's best skincare routine.
I need to know who drew those lips and why. Like, it's funny. Like I don't hate it, but at the same time, it's like it's so gross that I can't help but like appreciate it for how gross it is.
It had that vibe of something that you.
Maybe it was meant to be creepy.
Well, yeah, you started to draw it, and in your head, it was something, and how it would turn out on the Game Boy screen, and then you actually put it on the hardware and looked at it, and you're like, oh, well, I guess that's what
too
we're
late
doing.
now.
Yep.
I mean, it's the most detailed lips I've seen in a Game Boy game, so they definitely got that going.
Okay, so hold on. Let me get this straight. I would rather get bitten by a zombie than eat at Arby's.
Yeah.
And then Resident Evil Gaiden, the most detailed lips in a Game Boy game. Those are the two Mark quotes from...
I don't know which one to pick for my review.
There are episodes like these where I miss our old naming system.
Yeah, I know. Well, I try and make up for it with the, the this week on the free cheese. I try. In fact, hopefully the listeners have seen what I've done already.
I thought just one last quick hit. I thought the BOW, especially the ending stages of him, I thought he looked good. Good, grotesque.
Yeah. Even the overworld sprite wasn't bad. I was like, yeah, this looks like a tyrant. Like I knew right away that it was
tyrant, and then tyrant. I like that little animation of his fucking stomach hands popping out. Yeah.
No, I was thinking the same thing.
Alluded to that thing's scary.
And that translated well from the overworld, from the cutscene when I thought that was it was well done.
Yeah.
It did. To me, it did in that first form. Didn't feel like we were playing Punch Out for a bit.
Yeah.
Dude, could you imagine if you could just punch everything in that game? That would be great.
Well, you kind of had to, just if you're punching with your knife.
Right. Yeah. Knife punches. What I said earlier about the overworld sprite for the character, how it's not good for Barry or Leon because to me it doesn't look like them. It would have been perfect for Chris. Because whenever I look at that model, I do think of Chris immediately.
I kept forgetting that I was playing as Barry in this game. I kept thinking I was playing as Chris. So I can.
So it's not bad in that sense. I think it's a decent design, but it's not a good translation.
It's time for the tough part of the episode, at least in the case of a game like this. At the end of every episode this season, we rank the game we're talking about on a list that we call The List, that you can read and look at on thefreecheese.com/The List. Resident Evil Gaiden marks the 55th game we are adding to the list. And I'm swinging low, I think.
I am.
Eesh. We're in a real tough spot with this one, though.
I'm swinging. I'm low, but the placement of two games, I think, almost puts it in a certain number.
Yeah,
I can see that.
What, Matt? You want to start us off? Are we getting a rare season 11? Matt starts us with a ranking.
Yeah, I think it's 42.
That's the nicest I would be with it.
Huh? I like this better than Betrayal. There's no way it's better than Metal Gear. I think we all agree on a row on that one.
Yeah, in no way in hell this is going past Metal Gear.
No. But it's like I do think this is better than Betrayal.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, but I also think I like Top Gear Rally better than this.
Sure. And I also like Billy Hatcher more than this. But
I know. So yeah, my gut was to put this at like 51. Like it's just better than Lifeline, but not better than Billy Hatcher.
that's where I was initially. And then I was like, well, if I want to be more nicer about it and throw it in with the other Game Boy Color games, it's at highest, above Betrayal. And that's it.
Yeah.
So this is one of the situations where we do like other games on here more than that one, even though if it does end up being higher than it, but yeah, those are my two spots. It's either 42 or 52.
Well, howdy! I
Or
can't
51.
wait till for the listener. We don't usually reveal each other's scores until after for biasy. Biasy? Is that biasy reasons? Is that the word biasy? Sure. I'm going to go with it. I've already said it 3 times. So for biasy reasons, 4th time, we don't share each other's scores. I'm very curious to see what your scores are on this because I'm kind of high, I'm feeling.
Well, spoiler alerts. I just saw Mark's because he's dropped his in the thing. I have not dropped mine in, but
yeah, I did it right before we started.
Yeah.
Or else I was gonna forget. So.
Well, no. I mean, I can pop mine in there now. But yeah, I'm in a tough spot because now I don't like this better than Billy Hatcher, so I feel really weird putting it above Billy Hatcher. I'm with you. I think it is better than Betrayal. Did we put Betrayal too high? Were we too kind to Betrayal?
I don't.
You get a mini version of Steve Austin's theme. That's why it is where it is.
All right.
Seriously, I think we played the Devil's Crush game like we always do, and we're like, well.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I kind of like the better Top Gear. And I think that's where I landed.
Dang.
It's weird because I agree. I completely agree. I mean,
I think anywhere on this list we have the situation where we like.
Yeah, it's
we personally like games more than where we feel where they should be. I guess that's kind of the point.
All right, well, Matt, I mean, you seem pretty high on this one. I like this game better than maybe we ended up in the end talking about it. And I know, Mark, you're pretty down on this one. So, I
like the gameplay. It's just everything.
No,
else.
yeah, and that too, yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I think given the maybe not overall positivity, but the general positivity we have toward this game, maybe it makes sense a little bit higher. So back to the original, let's knock Betrayal down, but leave it below Solid. Is that a good place for it?
I mean, that was the spot I originally said. So
yeah. No,
But like, I mean, I get
fine.
your arguments though. I don't want to hang on that number because once you go past Betrayal, I don't mind it dropping.
Yeah, if it's worse than Betrayal, if we can agree on that, then I think it's below Billy Hatcher at 51.
That's quite a drop. Oof.
I know. That's how it goes, man. If you like let something slip off the top stair, sometimes it's just going to go all the way down.
And snowball effect. I get it. I know. I get it.
No more Uncle Grandpa. You know what I'm saying?
Like I can get past visual stuff if the gameplay is enticing enough, for sure. So I think that's why it probably goes up high where it does.
Too high on this game.
No, I mean there isn't much
bringing me
gameplay.
Back down.
Like there isn't much combat like this one has, and I love that art when you're into combat. Everything about that I don't hate. So I think that is what is keeping us floating. Because if that part wasn't in the game at all, this is bottom of the barrel. So the gameplay is a saving grace for this game. Which is good, because that's important in a video game. Like, that's the most important part.
$42?
Yeah. I'm trying to relive our old categories that we had, that we kind of had started that one episode where like we kind of don't touch these, and then like, you know, if it's your jam, try it.
Yeah.
I don't think this is like a don't touch it. I think
you should play this game.
Right. I think that's where we drop it to like the 50s. That's where I'm like, man, rough sledding. And
those zones are going to get bigger as we.
Yeah. I know. I'm just like, yeah. I think it's already kind of in that zone at 43 if you're playing the law of averages here, but yeah, it's that's just the way that's just the way rankings are right now. I like this little pocket of Game Boy we got going on here.
It is, yeah. Well, there it is. Our first, but not last, Resident Evil game on the list. Resident Evil continues on the list next week with its 4th entry. We'll find out what happened to Leon when he left the boat, I guess. For those eager and who have not checked out our March write-up announcing all of our games for the month, we're not playing the new 4 remake next week, but instead we're returning to its roots on the Nintendo GameCube. Although, spoiler alert, I played the Wii version, so we'll be talking about that quite a bit, because that is the best way to play the game. Maybe. I guess we'll find out next week. Until then, thanks Capcom. Thanks M4. Check out that Mary-Kate and Ashley Winning Circle game if you want more Game Boy Color winners. And until next time, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Goodbye.